Good afternoon. It's time for another video for the Hidden Woman Within. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you'll know when I upload a video. All right. Hope everybody's doing well on this, what I might call a blustery day because here in Texas it's quite kind of chilly. You see, I got my sweater on. I refuse to turn my heat on because then I can't breathe. And so I was like, well, I'm a little chilly, so I got a heating pad on the lower part of my back. And I'm kind of, comfortable right now. Anyway, okay, so I'm not going to be before you long. I just got a lot going on right now. I don't know. I just got a lot of stuff going on, but I wanted to make sure that I take the time to upload the video. Last video, I did mention that instead of every Tuesday, I was going to upload a video every other week. And today is Wednesday. But just know, hit that notification bell. You will know when I upload a video. I will get more consistent as time goes on, but it will be every other week and not every week. So the last video I was talking about, your true self and who that is. And so I think I've talked a lot about that. Um, and at this point, I think I can move a little further, but I probably will dip in and out of that. Like in a lot of the other videos, I kind of mentioned some of the same things because it's still all, related. So today I'm going to be talking about parenting and single parenting. Now, of course, my children are grown now, but they weren't always grown. And so I'm going to kind of start there. I know that there are a lot of single mothers out there, and they have their being a single parent has its challenges. There's also single dads, but I'm not a dad, so I can't speak for that. But I can speak to being about how it was like or what it was like being a single parent. So to start this off, I just want to tell you that when people look at me, they'll say, "Well, how old are your kids?" Or if I mention how old my kids are, and I'm like, "You got a child that old?" And I'm like, "You don't look like you're old enough." And I was like, "Well, I started young, and even though I started young, I still I don't look like no old woman, and don't let that gray hair fool you." I've seen a whole lot of young women with gray hair, so gray hair is not a sign of age. So anyway, I had my first child when I was 16, and my oldest is going to be 50 this year, and my youngest just turns 41, my baby. But he's a big old boy too. Well, a big old man, but he's 41 years old. And honestly, I don't feel any different today than I did 40, 50 years ago. My mindset is still the same. So I think if you can, you think young, you can stay young. It has a lot to do with your mindset. So anyway, like I said, I had my first child when I was 16 years old, and not ashamed of it. Don't feel guilty about it. It is what it is. I can't go back and change anything in my past. So I was a sophomore in school, and actually, I only stayed in school for 3 months, and it was a way out for me. So I dropped out of school and had my daughter. And by the time I was 25, I had already had my four children. And in between there, I had a miscarriage and I had an abortion. And I'm not ashamed to tell you about that either because um, I'm older now and I know better. But I remember when I did get pregnant that they used to say back then, "Oh, you made a mistake." Well, I'm a born again believer now, and I know what the word has to say. And there's no such thing in the Bible that says any woman that got pregnant, it was a mistake. If you were born, you were meant to be here. There's a scripture in Psalms 139 that talks about how God fashioned us in the womb. So, one of the translations talks about embroidered. Well, embroidery is very detailed. And so I ain't going to say if, because he took the time to put all of those intricate things on the inside of each one of us, there is no way he made a mistake. He don't make mistakes. So I remember when my daughter got pregnant at an early age, and it upset me. And the reason that it upset me because I knew how hard life could be as a single mom. And I didn't want my daughters to go through that same thing. But as it turned out, one of my girls got pregnant at an early age. And because it upset me, my family knew it. And somebody had made a comment that, well, you did it. And then I said, well, it was wrong then and it was wrong now at the time when she was pregnant. When I say wrong, what I mean is I got pregnant outside of wedlock. And I know that nowadays, people don't even feel like they need to be married to have children. Um, People don't even think they need to be married anymore. They think the easiest thing to do is just live together. And it's all out of order. That's why stuff doesn't work the way it's supposed to, because that was never God's plan, is for us just to have babies out of wedlock, and shack up. That was never his plan for our lives. That's why I believe it's so difficult. So anyway, um, having my first child at 16 had its challenges. My grandmother was there for me. I remember because I dropped out of school, she talked to one of my aunts and asked her if she would let me come and live with her and watch my daughter while I went back to school. And I did that. And so I was living with my aunt, and she had an upstairs apartment. And this building that she lived in, it was like a duplex building. There was an apartment in the front and one in the back, and there was some kind of like garage storage space at the bottom. So anyway, I found out that that apartment in the back, it was a 2 bedroom. Now I'm getting ready to tell you about the time. 2 bedroom apartment. The rent was $120. I think that's so funny now because I'm like, rent what nowadays for $120? I don't know what you can rent, maybe a vacuum cleaner or something. I don't know. But a 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom, living room, eating kitchen apartment. And so when I was able to rent that, I moved out of my aunt's house. And then you know what I did there? I felt like I was too grown. I ain't going to school. I got my own apartment. I'm grown. I ain't got to go to school. So I dropped out again. And I know that that was a disappointment to my grandmother because she was doing everything that she could to make sure that I was okay. And the reason for that, I know she cared about all of her grandchildren, but I was something a little special because she delivered me. My mom was pregnant, and it was on Sunday night. She didn't want to go to the hospital. No, it wasn't that she didn't want to go to the hospital. She was watching the Ed Sullivan show. This is my grandmother telling me the story. She was watching the Ed Sullivan show, and she didn't want to. She didn't want to miss the Ed Sullivan show, so she sit up there in labor watching. And he said, "We're gonna have a really great show tonight." I used to watch Ed Sullivan myself, and so she didn't make it to the hospital. So my grandmother delivered me. So, she wanted to make sure that everything was okay with me, even when I was younger. Um, Before I started, really running the streets or getting in the streets, my grandmother talked to my godparents, and I went and lived with them for a period of time. I think for like a year and a half, and she just wanted to make sure that I was okay, and I love her for that. So anyway, I remember when I didn't want to buy Pampers. And so I just, I'm going to use cloth diapers for my baby. So I bought the cloth diapers and the rubber pants and the safety pants because I'm going to do this, the old fashioned way. Well, I did until the first time she had a bowel movement. That was out the window. I'm like, I'm not washing that. Um, I am not washing that. My grandmother would get like 3 buckets of water. One was to rinse it off, you know. Then the other one was to actually wash it. Then the other one was to actually rinse it, and then she would hang the diapers and stuff on the line. I was like, if it was just wet, I could do that. But the minute she pooped, those diapers went in the garbage. And so then I was like, well, I'll just buy Pampers for when I go out, and then I'll have something to put on the baby, so I don't have to be carrying no poopy diapers or anything like that. So that, and then the formula and all that kind of stuff. So at 16, I had to learn all of this stuff, and I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes, and I was in the relationship with my daughter's father. He was abusive, physically, verbally, and emotionally. It was just what he knew how to, the way he knew how to be. I'm not making any excuses for him or anybody, but you can only go as high as what you learned, what you lived. So children have a tendency to learn what they live and then live what they learn. So, my example, if a young boy watched his father be abusive to his mother, in his mind, that's the way you're supposed to treat your wife. And in turn, if she doesn't fight back and she just allows him to do that because for whatever reason, if there's a little girl in the house, maybe she's thinking that, okay, well, that's what mommies are supposed to do. And daddy's beat on my, that's what they learn. And then they grow up. You would think that at some point they would know better. But I'm like, I told you before in another video, until you become a born again believer and know who you are in Christ, you'll just be living what you learn, but you don't have to live what you learn. You can make a decision. You can change some things. I did, so can you. But people have excuse, well, when I was a child, I didn't get this and I didn't get that. Well, you're grown now. If you want it, go buy it. Because, for me, I know I'm all over the place on this one. For me, my attitude was I did the best that I could do for my children. I did what I knew how to do. I wasn't very big on people trying to tell me what to do with my kids. Um, and what I mean by that, I wasn't one of those parents that said, don't you discipline my children, let them do whatever they want and then, fuss with you if you discipline. Well, I disciplined my own children. They can tell you. I didn't ever have, nobody ever had to discipline my children or fuss or say anything to my children because I trained my children at home. I didn't let the public, my family, the police department, I raised my children. So it was a struggle. Being a single parent, it was a struggle. I remember when my youngest daughter was 7 months old and being in a relationship, with their father, because my first 3 children had the same dad. And I remember just crying, and even though I wasn't a Christian then, I remember praying, crying out to the Lord, how long do I have to live this way? And then I was like, how long? I can't wait till my kids grow up because I'm thinking, the older they get, then I wouldn't struggle as much. I had two in Pampers at the same time. And I would just cry out to the Lord. And the sad thing about that is, it's like that time went by so fast. I mean, that time flew by. Who knew? And if I could change anything, if I could, the only thing that I could think of that I would change would be to have more time with them when they were babies, when they were younger. But no, I was too busy working, trying to keep some food on the table, trying to keep a roof over our head. I can't, they could probably tell you how many times we moved. I mean, I would have to sit and think about it. But I'm telling you, if they raised that rent $20, I had to find someplace else to live. And I know that may sound crazy, but that's just the way things were. It was hard being a single parent. It's probably harder now being a single parent. I don't know. I just I don't know. Some of these children seem to be so privileged. Maybe times are not as hard today, because I've witnessed a lot of stuff, and I'm really old fashioned when it comes down to raising kids. I remember some years ago I had heard this woman say something about her daughter wanting to wear a particular outfit to school, and she threw a tantrum. And so I was standing there in the midst of the conversation, and I said, and she proceeded to say, so I let her wear it, and I was like, oh, so she became the parent today, and so her response to me was, well, it wasn't worth her being upset. At that point, I just walked away. I had nothing else to say. I couldn't say anything. I mean, excuse me, that's her child. When I laid out my children's clothes, that's what you're wearing to school. And I didn't wasn't concerned whether you liked it or not. I mean, my job was to make sure that my children had clothes and that the clothes were cleaned. Nobody went to school with wrinkled up, dirty clothes on. I don't play that. They their clothes got washed, ironed if necessary, and put across hangers. So Monday morning, when school, when it was Monday morning time to get up from school, they didn't have to figure out what they was wearing. Go in the closet and get that hanger. That's what you're wearing to school today. Then when they came home, if they were going to go play outside, depending on what they were wearing, they had to change the clothes, because they wore those clothes twice, not twice in a row. But I mean, if they had a pair of jeans on, you'll wear those jeans again before the week is up. So those types of things. But the children today are different. My children can probably tell you some stories, and maybe at some point, you know, we'll do that as soon as I figure out how to do it. But maybe we'll do that. But yeah, the only regret that I have is just not spending more time with my children. So this is what this is what I did to make up for that. I started buying dogs. Um, because your dog is like a perpetual baby. They just never grow up. I'm done with that now. I think I'm done with that. I'm done to the point where I'm not buying dogs. So I miss my kids now, because I'm at the place in my life. I'm like, I'm not taking care of no kids. Nope. And I thank God that none of my children have any babies. Well, I'm going someplace else with that. But I would buy dogs, buy the dog, because it was like my baby. And I remember I had one dog named Duke. Duke tried to run the show until I was like, I got rid of him not once, but twice. He was a purebred Yorkie, and he thought he was running my house. And he did for a little while. And I was like, oh, let me show you who's boss. And I've had several, dogs that would only get, I don't like big dogs. I don't like big dogs. I mean, my size for a dog is like maybe 8 pounds. That's it. Because they reminded me of, I could sit and cuddle with them and all that kind of stuff. But I'm beyond all of that. So, anyway, just being a single parent and the stuff that I went through raising my children, because even though I was with their dad, he was present, but he was absent. He really didn't have a whole lot to say or do about their upbringing. I did all of that. And by the time when my daughter was 7 months old, probably about maybe about 8 months old, that relationship came to an end. And I'm glad it came to an end, because one of us was going to prison. Um, and it was going to be me. Because one of us was going to the morgue and the other one was going to the county jail. So, but thank God, like I said, I told that story too, that the day came and I thought I was going to kill him. And I'm so glad that I didn't take someone's life. But when she was just a baby, we went our separate ways. I stayed by myself for a little while. And then by the time she was 5 years old, I said, well, when she turns 5, I'm going to have my tubes tied. And, then I'm going to be good to go. Well, I went to the doctor. And because actually when I had her, they wouldn't tie my tubes because I wasn't 25 and I was single. So back then, I don't know what it is like now. You had to be at least 25 years old to be able to sign to have your tubes tied. And if you weren't 25, if you were married, you and your husband had to sign the paperwork. And the paperwork had to be put in 6 months before the procedure was actually done. So when my daughter turned 5, I was like, okay, she's going to be in kindergarten now. And life was going to be a little easier for me. So I thought. So I go to the doctor and explain to him what I want to have done. So the way that they do that is to, before they actually move forward with setting all that stuff up, they do a pregnancy test. Well, the pregnancy test came back positive, and so I said to him, "Well, how did that happen?" And he said, "Miss English, I think you know." I didn't know that I was pregnant, but I was. So, needless to say, the age gap between my youngest daughter and my youngest son is 5 years. He just turned 41 and she's going to be 46 in May of this year. Um, if I had to go back, what would I do differently again? It would just be spend more time with my children, but none of my children were a mistake. I saw some pretty hard times. I remember I came home from work one day, and my youngest daughter tells the story. She said they used to think that I was so mean because I'd walk in the house and wouldn't say anything. And then but then I don't remember when they said they realized it, but then they realized that I would come in the house and I'd be first checking to see if if the kids didn't have the TV on, I didn't know if the electricity was still on. And then we lived in this one house, and if I walked in the house and they had the TV on, then I knew the electric was good. Um, and then I'd go to the stove, to the basement door to see if the heat was coming on because I had oil heat. You had to have oil. And so one day I came home and I had just come in from work, and my oldest daughter said, I turned the light switch because the TV wasn't on. And I said, "Did anybody come here today?" And my daughter said, "Yeah, mommy, JC Penney and L." It was the Jersey Central Power and Light Company. They turned off my electricity. And I was freaking out. I remember jumping in the car and driving like 20 minutes away. And I got there just before they closed. And at the time, my sister worked for the electric company. She retired from there. But I came in and I was able to make a payment enough for them to turn my electricity back on. So by the time I got back home, I think later on, before it even got dark, my electricity was on. So I can't tell you how many times that happened. And then came in one time and the furnace wasn't on. And then we all had to stay in one bedroom upstairs. We had a big old 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom house with 2 story. And when there wasn't any oil and I didn't have any money to buy the oil, um, we all stayed in one bedroom with heaters. And it was hard. I remember we used to we can laugh at it now, but when it was time for when it was time for breakfast, we had to put our coats on to go downstairs in the kitchen to have breakfast. We had electricity, so the electric stove worked, but the house was heated with oil, so we had to put coats on and go downstairs and and have breakfast or whatever. And then the Lord always, always, always provided. I mean, it wasn't more than maybe a week or so that if something got turned off, I could get it turned back on. And it was just a hard time. So I understand being a single parent when you're trying to raise. Now, I had a young lady tell me, "Well, you don't know how hard it is, just raising one child." And I was like, "Oh, just one you got?" I said, "I raised 4 children practically by myself. My oldest daughter was 16 when I got married." This is not even off topic, but even though after I got married, I was still raising my kids as a single parent, basically. We'll get into talking about marriage later on. But anyway, I just wanted to come on today and try and just give you a little snippet, and I'll finish this out, talking about being a single parent. And I know that, there are some people today struggling, and there are some people that are single parents that maybe not, that are not struggling. I can tell you this: I was never one of those women, and I thank God, to use my children as a pawn. I never did that. And when I would see it happen, it would break my heart that a woman would put her children in the middle of a situation. I remember, I'm going to tell you this story, and then I'm really getting off. Um, I don't remember. There was two stories that I heard that literally just tore me up. And the one where the girl had said that, I think her husband left her, and she said that two guys hijacked her car, and her two or three boys was in the back seat. Well, come to find out that she killed them to get the attention of her husband. She put those kids in the back seat of the car and let that car roll down into the lake, and those babies drowned, using them as a pawn. Another story, it was uh, a woman that her husband left her, and he was at his mother's house, and she drove to his mother's house and doused the inside of that car with gasoline, with her two children, their two children, in the car, and threw the match in it and locked the car, and her children burned to death. There are women that will use their children to get back at men. That's a whole nother topic. I just can't even go there right now. But I know that being a single parent is tough. And there are some women that go, as you can tell, I just said, have gone to those extremes because they don't want to raise the kids by themselves. They don't want the man to be with somebody else, or whatever the case might be. But yeah, single parenting is tough. And I will finish this discussion the next time around. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you know when I upload a video. Thank you so much for spending a little time with me today. God bless.